Where forests meet stone walls, ancient blood remembers what the mind forgets. Princess Aurora had spent her life behind high castle walls, taught to fear the savage wolves that prowled beyond the forest's edge. Daughter of kings, heir to a human throne, she wore her crown of duty like armor against a world she'd never truly known. Yet in the quiet moments when moonlight streamed through her window, something wild stirred beneath her skin, an inexplicable longing that no royal teaching could silence. When the Alpha King Kaelin breached her father's walls, his golden eyes found hers across a burning throne room, and Aurora felt a terrible recognition, not of an enemy, but of something far more dangerous. Something that called to parts of herself she had been taught to deny. Now, as his captive, she discovers the most frightening prison isn't stone and guards, but the secrets woven into her very blood, secrets that could bridge two warring worlds or destroy them both. For in a land where humans and wolves have remained divided by centuries of hatred, Aurora stands at the precipice of a prophecy that will either heal ancient wounds or spill more blood than ever before, and the hunger in the Alpha's eyes suggests he has no intention of letting her go. Before we begin, remember to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. Every day, a new story awaits you. Now, let us begin. Aurora stood at the window of her prison, watching as the sun descended behind the mountains. Light fractured through stained glass, casting jewel-toned shadows across her skin, blue, crimson, and amber, painting her like the royalty she still was, chains or not. 6 days had passed since the wolves breached the city walls. 6 days since she'd watched her father's fortress fall. 6 days since she'd become captive to a monster who walked like a man. The door behind her creaked open. Aurora didn't turn. The servant girl, a human like herself, but with the mark of the pack on her wrist, placed a tray on the table and bowed. King Kaelin requests your presence at dinner tonight, Your Highness. Aurora's lips tightened. Tell the wolf I am indisposed. He said you would say that. The girl's voice trembled. He also said to inform you this wasn't a request. Now Aurora turned, her eyes narrowing. The servant flinched, though whether from Aurora's gaze or fear of returning with another rejection, she couldn't tell. Very well, Aurora said, her voice cold and steady. Tell him I will attend. The girl bobbed another quick bow and scurried out, leaving Aurora alone with a gown laid out on her bed, deep crimson silk with gold embroidery, wolf colors. The audacity of it made her blood simmer. She approached it slowly, running her fingers over the fabric. Fine craftsmanship. A gift meant to entice rather than comfort, like presenting a cage of gold instead of iron and expecting gratitude. Aurora had heard stories of the Alpha King since childhood. Kaelin the Conqueror, Kaelin the Merciless, a savage beast who'd united the warring wolf packs and turned his golden eyes toward the human kingdoms. Her father had doubled the city guards, tripled the night watch, all while assuring her the walls would hold. The walls hadn't held. She'd seen him only once after the battle, standing in the throne room, his massive frame silhouetted by flames as the banners of her house burned, blood on his hands, on his sword. But his eyes, those strange golden eyes, had found hers across the chaos with an intensity that had stolen her breath. Not rage, not triumph, but something else entirely. Recognition. Aurora shivered, then squared her shoulders. She would wear the gown, and she would not break. That's what he was waiting for her to crumble, to beg, to become another conquest. The corridor outside her chamber was lined with guards, not human sentries in her family's silver and blue, but wolves in crimson and gold. Aurora kept her chin high as they escorted her through the palace she'd grown up in, now transformed by new banners, new scents, new masters. The great hall, once bright with conversation and music, had become a different kingdom altogether. Long tables stretched beneath beams of ancient oak, laden with food. Wolves in human form filled the seats, laughing, arguing, some still wearing pieces of armor as if they'd only just returned from battle. The scent of meat and wine and something distinctly wild filled the air. They fell silent as she entered. Aurora felt their eyes tracking her movement, some curious, others hostile. She was not meant to be here. For generations, humans and wolves had kept to their own territories, their own kind. Even in defeat, a human royal dining among them was unprecedented, At the head table sat the Alpha King. Kaelin was terrifying in his beauty. His features were sharp and uncompromising. High cheekbones, strong jaw shadowed with stubble, and a mouth that looked as if it rarely smiled. His dark hair was pulled back, revealing the scars that traced his neck and disappeared beneath his collar. But it was his eyes that truly marked him as other, wolf gold, piercing, and fixed entirely on her. Aurora approached, her heart hammering against her ribs though her face remained impassive. She stopped before him, refusing to bow. "Princess," he said, his voice deeper than she remembered, with a rough edge that sent an inexplicable tremor down her spine. "I was beginning to think you preferred starvation to my company." "I prefer many things to your company," Aurora replied evenly, freedom being chief among them. A ripple of tension moved through the hall. One did not speak to the Alpha King this way, especially not a captive. But Kaelin merely raised an eyebrow, something like amusement flickering in his gaze. "Sit," he commanded, gesturing to the empty chair at his right, a place of honor that caused murmurs to spread through the gathered wolves. Aurora obeyed, her movements deliberately graceful. She would not give him the satisfaction of seeing her struggle. A goblet of wine was placed before her. She did not touch it. "You're not eating," Kaelin observed after several minutes of silence between them. "I find my appetite diminished in the presence of those who slaughtered my people." His jaw tightened. "Your father was given terms of surrender. He chose battle, and you chose to put the city to flame. The fires were not my order." His voice lowered, meant only for her ears. "Some of my warriors are less disciplined than others." Aurora's gaze flicked to the other wolves, many watching them with open curiosity now. How disappointing for an alpha to command such unruly subjects. She expected anger, perhaps even punishment for her insolence. Instead, Kaelin leaned closer, and she caught the scent of him. Pine, leather, something wild and distinctly male that made her pulse quicken against her will. "You are remarkably brave," he said quietly, "for someone who believes herself surrounded by monsters." Aurora met his gaze directly. "I was raised to fear neither death nor wolves, and yet you should fear both." His eyes dropped to her throat, lingering there a moment too long, especially when they hunger. A shiver that had nothing to do with fear coursed through her. "Why am I here?" she asked, changing the subject. "Why not lock me in the dungeons with the other prisoners?" Kaelin settled back in his chair, studying her. "You're not like the others. Because of my title? I assure you, a crown means little to wolves who recognize only strength and teeth. Because," he said, his voice dropping even lower, "you smell different." Aurora stiffened. "I beg your pardon?" But he offered no explanation, instead turning to speak with one of his captains, effectively dismissing her. Aurora sat rigidly through the remainder of the meal, picking at the food before her, all too aware of the Alpha's presence beside her, the heat radiating from his body, the subtle shift in the air whenever he moved. As the evening progressed, wine flowed freely, and the wolves grew rowdier. What had started as a formal dinner deteriorated into something more primal. A female wolf with striking red hair approached the high table, her eyes fixed on Kaelin with naked hunger. "My king," she purred, leaning deliberately close. "Will you join the dancing?" Her hand came to rest on his shoulder, fingers tracing patterns there. Something hot and unwelcome flared in Aurora's chest. "Not tonight, Lyra," Kaelin replied without looking at the she-wolf. Lyra's eyes narrowed, flicking to Aurora with undisguised hostility. "You favor strange company these nights. Be careful," Kaelin warned, his voice soft but edged with steel. The she-wolf retreated, but not before casting one final venomous look in Aurora's direction. "Your intended seems displeased," Aurora observed coolly. Kaelin's mouth quirked. "Lyra is not my intended." "No? She certainly behaves as if she has some claim to you. Many desire what they cannot have." His gaze settled on Aurora again, heavy and intent, especially that which is forbidden. Before she could respond, a commotion broke out at one of the lower tables. Two wolves squared off, snarling as their features began to shift, human faces elongating, teeth sharpening, nails extending to claws. Aurora had never witnessed the transformation before. Her breath caught as fur rippled beneath skin, bones cracking and reforming. "Stop!" Kaelin commanded, his voice resonating with authority that seemed to vibrate through the very air. Both wolves immediately stilled, their half-transformed bodies trembling with the effort to obey. "Take it outside if you must," he continued, "but remember that blood spilled in this hall belongs to me." The wolves backed down, retreating to opposite ends of the room. Aurora watched, fascinated despite herself. "That voice," she said quietly. "What was that?" "Alpha Command," Kaelin replied. "When I give an order in that voice, my wolves physically cannot disobey." Aurora shivered. "And does it work on humans?" His gaze darkened. "Would you like to find out, Princess?" The air between them seemed to thicken, charged with something dangerous and intoxicating. Aurora found herself leaning imperceptibly closer. "Kaelin," a gruff voice interrupted the moment. An older wolf approached the table, his gray-streaked beard and scarred face marking him as a warrior of many battles. He cast Aurora a suspicious glance before addressing his king in the wolves' ancient tongue, a language of growls and rumbling syllables she couldn't understand. Kaelin responded in the same tongue, his voice harder now. The older wolf's expression grew thunderous, but he nodded stiffly and retreated. "What was that about?" Aurora asked. "My general believes I should not keep you so close," Kaelin replied. "He thinks you're dangerous." "Me?" She gave a bitter laugh. "I am one unarmed human surrounded by an army of wolves. How could I possibly be dangerous to you?" Kaelin regarded her for a long moment, something shifting in his golden eyes. "Perhaps not to my body," he said at last. "But there are other vulnerabilities." Before Aurora could decipher his meaning, he stood, offering his hand. "Walk with me." It wasn't a request. Aurora hesitated, then placed her hand in his. The contact sent a jolt through her. His skin was fever-warm, the calloused palm engulfing her own. He led her from the hall, ignoring the curious and disapproving glances of his pack. The castle corridors were bathed in moonlight streaming through high windows. Aurora had walked these halls thousands of times throughout her life, but never like this, never with the weight of captivity on her shoulders and the heat of an alpha at her side. "My general wasn't the only one concerned about your presence tonight," Kaelin said, breaking the silence. "Many wonder why you've been given the freedom of the castle rather than a cell beneath it. I've wondered the same." He stopped, turning to face her. In the moonlight, his features were cast in silver and shadow, the gold of his eyes nearly luminous. "When we took the city," he said slowly, "I followed your scent through the palace. I knew what you were before I ever saw you." Aurora frowned. "What I was? I don't understand." Neither did I. His hand came up, hovering near her face without touching. "Humans and wolves haven't intermingled for centuries. The bloodlines separated long ago. And yet what?" She pressed when he fell silent. "Your scent," he said, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "It calls to me in ways no humans should." Aurora stepped back, unease creeping up her spine. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that despite appearances, despite what you believe yourself to be, there is wolf blood in your veins, Princess. Dormant, perhaps buried beneath generations of human ancestry. But it's there." "You're mad," Aurora breathed. "My family has ruled this human kingdom for 300 years. And before that? Do you know where your line originated?" When she didn't answer, he continued. "The old stories speak of a time when our kinds weren't separated, when wolves and humans lived together, even mated. Those bloodlines were thought lost to time. You're saying I'm part wolf?" The notion was absurd, impossible. "I've never transformed. I've never felt anything like what your kind can do." "No," he agreed. "But you feel something, don't you? When I'm near, when I speak." He stepped closer, and Aurora found herself rooted to the spot, unable to retreat further. "Your pupils dilate. Your pulse quickens. You respond to me in ways you don't understand. That's fear," she insisted, though her body betrayed her with a shiver that had nothing to do with terror. Kaelin shook his head. "No, it's recognition. Your blood recognizes mine. Even if what you say is true," Aurora said, fighting to keep her voice steady. "What does it matter? I am still your prisoner. You've still conquered my kingdom. It matters," he said, his voice suddenly fierce, "because it changes everything. A human princess would be a political prisoner, a bargaining chip to be used and discarded. But you?" He broke off, his jaw clenching. "You could be so much more." "More? What more could I possibly be to you?" The air between them seemed to vibrate with tension, with possibilities unspoken. Kaylin's gaze dropped to her mouth, and for one wild, terrifying moment, Aurora thought he might kiss her. Instead, he stepped back, his expression closing off. It's late. I'll have the guards escort you back to your chambers. Aurora stood frozen, her heart pounding erratically. You haven't answered my question. No, he agreed, already turning away. I haven't. She watched him stride down the corridor, his broad shoulders rigid with some internal struggle she couldn't begin to comprehend. Only when he'd disappeared from view did Aurora release the breath she'd been holding, her hand coming up to press against her thundering heart, wolf blood in her veins. It couldn't be true. And yet, hadn't there always been something different about her? The way she could sense emotions in a room, the way her instincts sometimes guided her with uncanny precision, the way the full moon made her restless, driving her to the castle walls to stare at the forest beyond. The guards appeared at the end of the hall, ready to escort her back to her quarters. As they walked, Aurora couldn't shake the feeling that her entire world had shifted beneath her feet. She was no longer just a captive princess. She was something else, something undefined, caught between two worlds that had been at war for centuries. And the Alpha King knew it. Back in her chambers, Aurora stood at the window once more, staring out at the night sky. The moon hung full and heavy above the forest, calling to something deep within her that she'd never fully acknowledged. Who am I? She whispered to the empty room. What am I? Only the silence answered, but somewhere in the distance a wolf howled, long and mournful, and somehow like a question waiting to be answered. And against all reason, Aurora felt the urge to howl back. 3 days passed with no summons from the Alpha King. Aurora paced her chambers like a caged animal, her mind consumed by Kaylin's impossible claim. Wolf blood. The very notion was preposterous. And yet, she couldn't dismiss it entirely. Standing before the polished silver mirror, Aurora studied her reflection, searching for any sign of the beast supposedly lurking in her bloodline. Her features remained the same as they'd always been: high cheekbones, full lips, the pale blue eyes she'd inherited from her mother. Nothing feral, nothing wild, just the face of a human princess. But what if Kaylin spoke the truth? What if centuries ago, her ancestors had mingled their blood with wolves? A knock interrupted her thoughts. The door opened to reveal Mira, the servant girl who had been assigned to her. Your Highness, Mira said, her voice hushed with excitement. The Alpha King has arranged for you to join the hunt today. Aurora turned sharply. The hunt? Yes, Your Highness. It's tradition for the pack on the full moon. You've been invited to ride with them. Mira placed a bundle of clothing on the bed. He sent these for you. Aurora approached warily, unfolding the garments. Riding clothes finely made, supple leather breeches, a crimson tunic, and a cloak lined with fur. Not the dress of a prisoner, but of an honored guest. What game does he play? She murmured, more to herself than to the servant. Mira hesitated. If I may speak freely, Your Highness. Aurora nodded, curious. The pack speaks of little else but your attendance at dinner. Some say— Mira lowered her voice further. Some say the Alpha has taken an interest in you beyond political necessity. An interest? Yes. The way he watches you, the place he gave you at his table. Mira's eyes darted nervously to the door. Lady Lyra was most displeased. Aurora recalled the she-wolf's possessive manner. She has some claim to him. She believes she does. Her father is Ranulf, the general you met. He has long hoped to unite their bloodlines. Interesting. Aurora considered this new information. Political alliances existed among wolves, just as they did among humans. And she, a human princess with alleged wolf blood, had disrupted those plans. Help me dress, she said finally. It seems I have a hunt to attend. The courtyard bustled with activity when Aurora emerged. Wolves in both human and animal form moved with purpose, preparing mounts and weapons. The excitement in the air was palpable, a current of anticipation that raised the hairs on her arms. And there, amidst the chaos, stood Kaylin. The sight of him stole her breath. He was dressed for the hunt in leathers and furs, a sword strapped to his hip, looking every inch the warrior king. The morning sunlight caught in his dark hair, giving it an almost blue-black sheen. He turned, as if sensing her presence, and their eyes locked across the distance. Something passed between them. Recognition, yes, but something deeper, something that made her heart stutter in her chest. Then he was moving toward her, wolves parting in his wake. "Princess," he greeted, his voice a low rumble that she felt more than heard. "You came. Was there a choice?" she asked, arching an eyebrow. His lips quirked. "Always. Though I'm pleased you chose to join us." He circled her slowly, appraising the riding clothes. Aurora refused to show discomfort under his scrutiny, keeping her spine straight and her chin lifted. "You look," he began, then seemed to reconsider his words. "The clothes suit you." "Do they? I thought perhaps you were trying to make me look more like one of your pack." "No," he replied simply. "They would never mistake you for one of them." Before Aurora could determine if this was meant as insult or compliment, Kaelin gestured to a sleek black mare being led toward them. "Your mount. She's spirited but will respond well to a firm hand." Aurora approached the horse, stroking its velvety nose. The animal nuzzled into her palm, recognizing a kindred spirit perhaps. Another female surrounded by predators. "What exactly are we hunting?" she asked, accepting Kaelin's assistance as she mounted. He swung effortlessly onto his own steed, a massive stallion that would have intimidated most riders. Deer, primarily, though the younger wolves may chase rabbits for sport. "And will you be changing forms?" The question had been burning inside her since she'd received the invitation. She'd never witnessed a full-pack transformation. Kaelin's golden eyes gleamed. "Curious about our ways, Princess? Merely wondering what to expect? Some will shift. Others prefer to hunt on horseback. The choice is individual." He paused, studying her. "Does the prospect disturb you?" Aurora considered the question honestly. "No," she said finally. "It intrigues me." Something like approval flickered in his gaze before he turned, raising his arm in signal. A horn sounded, deep and resonant, and the hunting party began to move. They rode through the city gates and into the forest beyond, a place Aurora had seen only from the castle walls. The trees stretched tall around them, ancient sentinels with gnarled trunks and whispering leaves. Sunlight filtered through the canopy, dappling the forest floor in patterns of light and shadow. Aurora breathed deeply, drawing in the scent of earth and growing things. It felt strangely like coming home, though she'd never ventured this far from the castle before. "You're smiling," Kaelin observed, riding close beside her. Aurora hadn't realized. "I've never been in the deep forest. It's beautiful. It's where we belong," he said. "Wolves and forests are old allies. Yet you choose to occupy a stone castle. For now." His expression grew thoughtful. "There was a time when our kinds lived differently, more harmoniously with the land. Perhaps those days will come again. After you've conquered all the human kingdoms?" she asked, unable to keep the edge from her voice. Kaelin's jaw tightened. "Your father wasn't the first human king to attempt to hunt wolves to extinction. We fought for survival. Nothing more." Aurora fell silent, considering this perspective. The stories she'd been raised with painted wolves as the aggressors, but history was always written by those in power. The hunting party spread out as they moved deeper into the forest. Some wolves dismounted, stripping off clothing before shifting into their animal forms. Aurora watched, mesmerized, as human bodies contorted and fur rippled into existence. There was pain in the transformation. She could see it in their expressions, but also a kind of ecstasy, a release. The shifted wolves ran ahead, their powerful bodies moving with fluid grace through the underbrush. Aurora found herself envying their freedom, their connection to the wild. "Does it hurt?" she asked quietly. "The change." "Yes," Kaelin replied, watching his pack with evident pride. "But it's a necessary pain, like the breaking of a dam. Fighting the shift hurts worse than surrendering to it. Have you always been able to control it?" He glanced at her. "No. As pups, the shift can be triggered by strong emotions. Fear, anger, pain. It takes years to master control." Aurora tried to imagine a child undergoing such a transformation, their small bodies breaking and reforming. That sounds terrifying. It can be, which is why pack is essential. No wolf raises their young alone. His voice softened. The first shift is always witnessed by family, guided by those who understand. There was something in his tone, a shadow of old pain perhaps, that made Aurora wonder about his own first transformation. Had he been surrounded by family? Or had he faced that moment of change alone? Before she could form the question, a howl pierced the forest silence. The hunting party immediately tensed, alert. More howls followed, creating an eerie chorus that sent shivers down Aurora's spine. "They've found the trail," Kaelin explained, his body already coiling with anticipation. "Stay close to me." He urged his stallion forward, and Aurora followed, her mare racing to keep pace. They thundered through the forest, ducking branches and leaping fallen logs. The exhilaration of the chase caught Aurora by surprise, her heart pounding, blood singing in her veins, a wild joy surging through her unlike anything she'd experienced before. "This is what it means to be alive," she thought, a laugh escaping her lips as they jumped a narrow stream. Beside her, Kaylin's eyes widened at the sound, then crinkled with unexpected warmth. The forest opened into a clearing where the pack had cornered a magnificent stag. The animal stood proudly, antlers lowered in defense as wolves circled it. Aurora reined in her mare, suddenly conflicted. The stag was beautiful, dignified even in its fear. "They won't attack without command," Kaylin said, noting her expression. "This is more than mere hunting for us. It's ritual, acknowledgement of what sustains us." As if on cue, the wolves backed away, creating a path. To Aurora's surprise, Kaylin dismounted, handing his reins to a nearby pack member. He approached the stag slowly, drawing a knife from his belt. "We honor your sacrifice," he said in the ancient tongue of wolves, the guttural words somehow comprehensible to Aurora, though she'd never learned them. "Your strength becomes our strength. Your spirit joins with ours." With movements almost too quick to follow, Kaylin lunged. The stag tried to dodge, but the alpha was faster. The blade found its mark at the animal's throat, a clean kill, merciful and swift. The stag collapsed, and Kaylin knelt beside it, placing a hand on its heaving flank as the life faded from its eyes. There was something sacred in the moment, a reverence that Aurora had not expected from creatures she'd been taught were savage. The wolves gathered around, some shifting back to human form, their naked bodies unashamed as they helped prepare the kill. When Kaylin rose, his hands were stained with blood. He approached Aurora, still mounted on her mare, and she fought the urge to retreat. "It's custom," he said, "for all who join the hunt to be marked by the first kill." Aurora hesitated, then slowly dismounted, standing before him. Kaylin dipped his fingers in the blood on his knife, then reached toward her face. "May I?" he asked, his voice gentler than she'd ever heard it. Aurora nodded, her breath catching as his fingertips touched her skin, drawing a line from forehead to chin. The blood was warm, the touch intimate in ways that made her pulse quicken. "Now you have participated in the ritual," he said softly. "You are part of this hunt." His eyes held hers, something unspoken passing between them. Aurora became acutely aware of how close they stood, of the warriors watching with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hostility. The moment was broken by Ranulph's approach, his human form as imposing as his wolf had been. He spoke in rapid wolf tongue, gesturing toward the north with evident concern. Kaylin's expression darkened. "Humans," he said to Aurora, translating. "A hunting party has crossed our borders." "My people?" she asked, hope flaring in her chest. "Possibly. Or mercenaries." His jaw tightened. "Either way, they've violated the treaty boundary." "What treaty?" "You conquered our kingdom." "The treaty with the Eastern Human Kingdoms," he clarified. "Your father's allies." Aurora's hope grew stronger. If her father's allies had come, perhaps all was not lost. Perhaps she could still be rescued from captivity. Kaylin seemed to read her thoughts. "Do not mistake their presence for salvation, Princess. If they've come for you, they've chosen a path that can only end in bloodshed. You would kill them for attempting to free me? I would kill them for trespassing on wolf territory with weapons," he corrected, his voice hardening, "as they would kill any wolf who ventured onto their lands." He turned to Ranulph, issuing orders. The pack began to move with practiced efficiency, some shifting to wolf form, others gathering weapons. "Stay with the hunting party," Kaylin instructed Aurora. "Damien will see you safely back to the castle." A young warrior stepped forward, nodding respectfully. "No," Aurora said firmly. "I'm coming with you." Kaylin's eyebrows rose. "This could be dangerous." "If these are my father's allies, I should be there. My presence could prevent bloodshed. Or provoke it," he countered. "They might think you're being held against your will." "I am being held against my will," she reminded him. Something like hurt flashed in his eyes. So quickly she might have imagined it. "Nevertheless, you'll return to the castle." "Kaylin," she said, using his name for the first time rather than his title. The familiarity seemed to surprise them both. Please, let me help prevent more death." He studied her face, conflict evident in his expression. Finally, he nodded. "Very well, but you stay beside me at all times. If I give an order, you obey without question. Understood?" Aurora nodded, relief flooding through her. She remounted her mare, following as Kaelin led the pack northward at a brisk pace. The forest grew denser, the trees pressing closer together, their branches blocking much of the sunlight. "These woods mark the border between your father's kingdom and the eastern realms," Kaelin explained as they rode. "The treaty line runs along the river ahead." Aurora had heard of the river, but had never seen it. The boundary had been established generations ago, after the last great war between wolves and humans. For centuries, neither side had dared cross it. Until now, they reached the riverbank, a wide expanse of rushing water that cut through the forest like a silver ribbon. On the opposite shore stood a group of armed men, 20, perhaps 30 strong. Their armor gleamed in the dappled sunlight, and their banner. Aurora's heart sank. Not her father's banner, but that of Lord Tarek, a minor noble from the Eastern Kingdoms, a man known more for mercenary work than loyalty to any crown. "Those aren't allies," she said quietly to Kaelin. "They're sellswords." Kaelin nodded grimly. "I suspected as much. The question is who hired them?" Before Aurora could respond, Tarek himself rode to the water's edge, his weathered face twisted in a sneer. "Wolf King," he called across the water. "We come for the princess." Kaelin moved his stallion forward, positioning himself slightly in front of Aurora. "You trespass on wolf territory, human. Turn back now, and I might let you live." Tarek laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Bold words from a beast. We have crossbows trained on you as we speak." He gestured, and Aurora saw archers positioned in the trees on their side of the river. They had already crossed. "An ambush," she whispered. Kaelin's body tensed, but his voice remained steady. "Who sent you, mercenary?" "Someone who pays well for wolf pelts," Tarek replied with a cruel smile. "And even better for royal hostages." Aurora frowned. If they weren't sent by her father or his allies, who would want her captured? And why hire mercenaries to attack wolves rather than negotiate? Tarek's eyes found hers. "Princess Aurora, you will come with us now. These animals have held you captive long enough." She felt the pack bristling around her, heard low growls from those in wolf form. Kaelin remained eerily still, but she could sense the rage building within him. "And if I refuse?" Aurora called back, her voice clear and strong. Tarek's expression hardened. "Then you will watch these beasts die before we take you anyway." A signal passed between the mercenary leader and his men. Aurora saw the archers drawing back their bows, taking aim at the wolves around her. "Kaelin," she warned. But the alpha was already moving. With a roar that shook the very trees, he gave the command to attack. Wolves surged forward, some leaping directly into the river toward the men on the opposite bank, others turning to face the hidden archers. The first crossbow bolt flew, missing Kaelin by inches and embedding itself in a tree. More followed, and the air filled with the sounds of battle. Snarls, screams, the clash of steel against claws. Aurora's mare reared in panic. She fought to control the animal, acutely aware of her vulnerability in the midst of combat. A wolf fell nearby, a bolt protruding from its shoulder, and then another. Through the chaos, she saw Kaelin shift. His human form surrendered in a blur of motion as he became the largest wolf she had ever seen, black as midnight, with eyes that burned like molten gold. He tore through the mercenaries with terrifying efficiency, jaws closing around throats, powerful limbs sending men flying. An archer appeared from behind a nearby tree, taking aim at the alpha's exposed flank. Without thinking, Aurora spurred her mare forward, crashing into the man just as he released his bolt. The shot went wild, and the mercenary tumbled to the ground. Before he could recover, a gray wolf pounced, finishing him with a single bite to the neck. Aurora wheeled her horse around, searching for Kaelin among the melee. She found him at the river's edge, locked in combat with Tarek himself. The mercenary leader wielded a silver sword, the metal wolves feared most, slashing desperately as the massive black wolf circled him. Tarek lunged, the blade catching Kaelin across the shoulder. The alpha yelped in pain, the silver burning like acid where it touched him. "No!" Aurora cried, urging her mare toward them. Tarek turned at the sound, his face contorting with rage when he saw her. "Traitor," he spat. "Siding with beasts against your own kind." He abandoned his fight with Kaelin, charging toward her with his sword raised. Aurora's mare shied away, nearly unseating her. She clung desperately to the saddle as the horse bolted along the riverbank. Tarek gave chase, but not for long. The black wolf recovered quickly, launching himself at the mercenary's back and bearing him to the ground. There was a sickening crunch as powerful jaws closed around the man's neck, and then stillness. The battle was ending as quickly as it had begun. The mercenaries, facing the full fury of a wolf pack led by their alpha, were retreating across the river, leaving their dead behind. Those who had crossed to set the ambush were slaughtered to a man. Aurora finally managed to calm her mare, bringing the animal to a halt at a safe distance from the carnage. The pack was regrouping, some shifting back to human form to tend the wounded, others securing the perimeter against further attacks. And then Kaelin was there, shifting back to his human form in a fluid motion that left him naked and magnificent before her. Blood, his and others, streaked his skin, but it was the silver burn on his shoulder that drew her eye. The wound was ugly, the flesh around it blackened and smoking slightly. "You're hurt," she said, dismounting quickly. "It will heal." He glanced at the dead mercenary leader, his expression grim. Those silver wounds heal slower. Aurora approached cautiously, her eyes drawn to the injury. "Let me see." Kaelin regarded her with surprise, but did not object as she examined the wound. The silver had burned deep, leaving a wound that would certainly scar, even with a wolf's accelerated healing. "We need to clean this," she said, surprised by her own concern for the man who was her captor. Later, his attention shifted to her face, his eyes narrowing. "You're bleeding." Aurora raised a hand to her cheek, feeling a sting she hadn't noticed in the heat of battle. A shallow cut traced her cheekbone, likely from a branch as her horse had bolted. Kaelin stepped closer, his nakedness forgotten as he examined the wound with gentle fingers. "You could have been killed," he said, his voice rough with emotion she couldn't identify. "As could you," she replied. "That mercenary nearly gutted you with silver." "Why did you warn me? Why did you charge that archer?" The questions burst from him, demanding and confused. They could have been your chance at freedom. Aurora had no answer that made sense, even to herself. In the moment, she had acted on instinct, without thought for anything except preventing Kaelin's death. "I don't know," she admitted finally. His expression softened, understanding dawning in his eyes. "Your blood knows, even if your mind does not." He raised his hand to her face, his thumb tracing the line of blood from her cut. Then, to her shock, he brought the thumb to his mouth, tasting her blood with a delicacy that made heat rush to her face. "Sweet," he murmured, "like honey and fire." Aurora couldn't look away from his mouth, from the smear of her blood on his lips. Something primal stirred within her, a hunger she had never known. "Alpha," Ranulph's voice broke the spell between them. "We must return to the castle. There could be more of them." Kaelin stepped back, his expression closing off as he nodded to his general. "Gather the wounded. Leave no wolf behind, living or dead." He turned back to Aurora, his voice lowering. "We have much to discuss, Princess. This attack was no coincidence. Who would send mercenaries after me?" she asked, the question that had been nagging at her since Tarek's revelation. "Someone who knows what you are," Kaelin replied grimly. "Someone who fears what your existence means." The castle hummed with tension as Aurora paced the council chamber, waiting for Kaelin. After the attack at the river, they'd returned in somber procession, carrying their wounded. 3 wolves had died defending the pack, defending her. The weight of that sacrifice pressed on her shoulders like a physical burden. The door swung open, and Kaelin entered. He'd bathed and changed, but exhaustion lined his face, and the silver burn on his shoulder had been hastily bandaged. Behind him came Ranulph and several other pack leaders, their expressions grim. "Princess," Kaelin acknowledged, his voice formal again, "thank you for your patience." Aurora nodded, suddenly aware of how she must look, still in her blood-stained riding clothes, hair wild from the chase and battle. She'd refused to return to her chambers, insisting on being part of whatever council followed the attack. 3 dead, 11 wounded, Ranulph reported, casting a suspicious glance at Aurora. "And for what? A human princess?" "Watch your tone," Kaelin warned. "She's the reason they attacked," Ranulph pressed. "Those mercenaries came for her. They came because someone sent them," Kaelin corrected, his voice edged with authority. The question is who and why now? Aurora stepped forward. Lord Tarek is known for taking contracts from anyone with enough gold. He has no personal stake in any kingdom's politics. Then who hired him? Asked a she-wolf Aurora didn't recognize. Who would risk breaking the treaty to capture a single human? Not just any human, Kaelin said quietly. A human with dormant wolf blood. The room fell silent. Several pack members exchanged glances of disbelief or concern. That's impossible, the she-wolf said finally. The bloodlines haven't crossed in centuries. Yet here she stands, Kaelin replied. I've smelled her blood. I've tasted it. There is no mistake. Aurora felt their eyes on her, examining, evaluating. She lifted her chin, refusing to be cowed. Even if it's true, Ranulf said. What does it matter? She can't shift. She has no wolf strength or senses. It matters, Kaelin said firmly, because her existence proves the old prophecies may be true after all. Prophecies? Aurora asked, unable to contain her curiosity. What prophecies? Kaelin hesitated, then gestured toward an ancient tome on the council table. Our histories speak of a time when wolves and humans will be reunited, when the blood that was divided will flow as one again. That's a myth, Ranulf scoffed. A tale for pups. Many myths contain truths, Kaelin countered. And someone believes this one strongly enough to send armed men across the treaty line to capture Aurora. The implications hung heavy in the air. If someone feared a prophecy enough to risk war, what else might they do? My father, Aurora said suddenly. Could he have known? Is that why he kept me so isolated? Why I was never permitted beyond the castle walls? Kaelin's expression softened slightly. It's possible. Royal bloodlines are carefully documented. Perhaps he discovered the truth and sought to protect you. Or hide her, Ranulf muttered. Aurora's mind raced. Her entire life, she'd believed herself purely human, a princess of an ancient royal line. Now everything she knew about herself was being called into question. Whatever the reason, Kaelin said, the fact remains that Aurora is now in even greater danger. If Tarek failed, whoever hired him will try again. Then give her back to the humans, Ranulf suggested. Let them deal with her. No. Kaelin's response was immediate and forceful. She stays under our protection. Why? Ranulf challenged, stepping forward. She's not Pack. She's a liability, a target that puts us all at risk. She saved my life today, Kaelin growled. She warned me of the archer. She charged a man with a crossbow to protect me. Would you have me repay that with abandonment? Ranulf's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing. The princess remains, Kaelin declared, his tone allowing no further argument. Double the guards on the castle walls. No one enters or leaves without my direct permission. The council members nodded, though some looked less than pleased with the decision. They filed out, leaving Aurora alone with Kaelin. The air between them felt charged, as if a storm were brewing just beneath the surface of their carefully maintained composure. You didn't tell me about any prophecy, Aurora said finally, breaking the silence. I wasn't certain until today. Kaelin moved to the window, gazing out at the twilight sky. When you acted to save me, it confirmed what I suspected. Which is what, exactly? He turned to face her, his golden eyes intense. That you are more wolf than you know. That your instincts recognize pack bonds, even if your mind does not. Aurora frowned. I acted on impulse, nothing more. Did you? He stepped closer. Or did something deeper drive you? Something that could not bear to see me harmed? The question hung between them, demanding an honesty Aurora wasn't sure she was ready to give. Had she acted merely on human compassion? Or was there something else? Something wilder urging her to protect this man who had conquered her kingdom? I don't know, she admitted. Kaelin nodded, as if her confusion confirmed his theory. The wolf blood in you is awakening, Aurora. It recognizes its own kind. And the prophecy? What exactly does it say? He hesitated, then moved to the ancient tome on the table. Opening it carefully, he revealed pages of faded script in the wolf tongue. When the blood divides returns as one, when the moon claims what the sun has won, the ancient pact shall be reborn. He translated the flowing script. The Alpha who claims the throne of two shall unite what war has sundered. Aurora stared at the words, a chill running through her. And you believe, what? That I am this blood divided? That you are the Alpha meant to claim two thrones? I believe, he said slowly, that there are forces at work beyond our understanding. I conquered your kingdom because your father threatened my pack, but perhaps we were all merely pieces being moved across a board by destiny." She laughed, the sound brittle in the quiet room. Destiny. A convenient excuse for conquest. Is it? Kaelin closed the book. Then how do you explain your reactions to me? The way your body responds when I'm near? The fact that you understand our ancient tongue without being taught? Aurora blinked. I don't. You do, he insisted. At the hunt, when I spoke the ritual words over the stag, you understood them. I saw recognition in your eyes. She hadn't realized until he mentioned it, but he was right. The guttural syllables had made sense to her, though she'd never studied the wolf language. This doesn't change anything, she said, stepping back. I'm still your prisoner. My kingdom is still conquered. It changes everything, Kaelin countered, his voice dropping to a near whisper. It means you belong here, Aurora. With us. With me. The intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. There was hunger there, yes, but also something else. A longing. A hope that seemed almost vulnerable. I belong with my people, she insisted, though the words felt hollow even to her own ears. Your people, he echoed. Which ones, Aurora? The humans who would hide your true nature, or the wolves who would embrace it? Before she could answer, a commotion erupted in the corridor outside. The door burst open, and Mira rushed in, her face pale with fear. Your Majesty, she gasped. Riders approaching from the east. They bear the banner of King Lionel. Aurora's heart leapt. My father? He's alive? Kaelin's expression darkened. How many? A small company, sire. Perhaps 20 men. He nodded sharply. Have them escorted to the Great Hall. Ensure they are disarmed before entry. Mira bobbed a quick curtsy and hurried out. Aurora turned to Kaelin, hope and apprehension warring within her. If my father has come, it must be to negotiate peace, she said. Perhaps even my release. Perhaps. But Kaelin didn't sound convinced. Or perhaps he comes for other reasons entirely. What other reason could he have? Kaelin's eyes held hers, solemn and searching. The same reason mercenaries were sent to capture you, to ensure the prophecy never comes to pass. The Great Hall had been hastily prepared to receive the unexpected visitors. Aurora stood beside Kaelin's throne, her position a clear statement to all who entered. The princess was under the Alpha's protection. The doors swung open, and King Lionel entered, flanked by his royal guard. Aurora's breath caught at the sight of her father, thinner than she remembered, his face lined with new cares, but alive and unbowed. His eyes found hers immediately, relief washing over his features. Aurora, he breathed, taking a step forward before catching himself. Father, she replied, fighting the urge to run to him. Something in Kaelin's posture beside her kept her rooted in place, a tension she could feel radiating from him like heat. King Lionel drew himself up, addressing Kaelin with careful formality. Alpha King, I come to discuss terms for my daughter's release. Do you? Kaelin's voice was deceptively mild. Not terms of surrender for your kingdom? The kingdom is lost, Lionel conceded, but my daughter need not remain a prisoner. Kaelin leaned forward slightly. She is not a prisoner. She is a guest of the pack. Lionel's eyebrows rose in clear disbelief. Then you will not object to her returning with me to the Eastern Kingdoms, where I have been granted sanctuary. A low growl rumbled in Kaelin's chest, too quiet for human ears to detect, but Aurora felt it like a physical vibration through her body. I would object, Kaelin said, his voice hardening, most strongly. The hall fell silent, tension thickening the air. Aurora glanced between her father and the Alpha, sensing the deeper currents flowing beneath their exchange. Father, she said carefully, did you send Lord Tarek and his men across the treaty line to find me? Lionel's expression flickered with surprise, then settled into careful neutrality. I know nothing of any treaty violation. A mercenary force attacked us this morning, Kaelin said. Their leader claimed they were sent to capture Aurora. Not by me, Lionel insisted, though something in his eyes, a flicker of unease, made Aurora doubt him. Then who? She pressed. Who would risk breaking the treaty? Who would know to find me with the wolves? Her father hesitated, his gaze shifting between her and Kaelin. Aurora, there are matters you don't understand. I understand more than you think, she interrupted. I know about the wolf blood in our line. I know about the prophecy. Lionel paled visibly, confirming her suspicions. Who told you this nonsense? Is it nonsense, father? Or is it the reason you kept me isolated all these years? Why I was never allowed beyond the castle walls? Why every suitor who sought my hand mysteriously lost interest after meeting with you? The king's silence was answer enough. Aurora felt a strange mixture of vindication and betrayal wash over her. You knew, she whispered. All this time, you knew what I was. I knew what you could become, Lionel said, his voice low and urgent. I sought to protect you from it. Protect her? Kaelin rose from his throne, his presence suddenly dominating the hall. Or deny her true nature? Lionel's face hardened. You know nothing of what you speak, Wolf. The prophecy brings nothing but destruction. History has proven it time and again. What history? Aurora demanded. Tell me the truth, Father. All of it. The king's shoulders sagged slightly, as if a great weight had settled upon them. The prophecy has surfaced before Aurora. 3 times in recorded history, a human of royal blood has been discovered with the wolf ancestor. Each time, war followed. Thousands died. The balance between our kinds was nearly destroyed. Because humans feared what they did not understand, Kaelin countered. Because they sought to eliminate any threat to their dominance. Because wolves sought to use these hybrids to claim human kingdoms, Lionel shot back. To subjugate those they deemed lesser. Aurora looked between them, pieces falling into place. That's why you came, she said to her father. Not to rescue me, but to ensure I could never fulfill the prophecy. Pain crossed Lionel's features. Aurora, please. I love you more than anything in this world. Everything I've done has been to protect you. By denying me knowledge of who I truly am? By keeping me imprisoned in ignorance? Her voice rose with each question. Was there ever to be a husband for me, Father? Or was I always destined for a life of isolation, lest my wolf blood awaken? There was a plan, Lionel admitted reluctantly. A herb, administered since childhood, to suppress the wolf traits. It has worked for generations in our line. Aurora gasped, memories flooding back. The bitter tea her nursemaid had insisted she drink each morning and night, the strange ritual baths infused with herbs that left her feeling oddly muted and calm. You drugged me, she whispered, horrified. My entire life you've been poisoning me to keep the wolf dormant. To keep you safe, Lionel insisted. The wolf blood brings nothing but suffering, Aurora. Those with it are caught between worlds, belonging nowhere, hunted by both sides. Until now. Kaelin's voice cut through the tension like a blade. He stepped forward, positioning himself slightly between Aurora and her father. The prophecy speaks not of destruction, but of union, of healing what was broken centuries ago. Pretty words, Lionel scoffed. And yet your first act was to conquer by force. My first act was to defend my pack against extinction, Kaelin corrected. My second. He turned to Aurora, his golden eyes softening as they met hers. My second is to offer choice where there has been none. Aurora's breath caught at the intensity in his gaze. What choice? To embrace all that you are, Kaelin said simply. To stop fighting the wolf within you. To take your place among us. Not as captive, but as equal. The offer hung in the air between them, fraught with implications she could barely comprehend. To acknowledge the wolf blood, to perhaps even awaken it fully, it would mean abandoning everything she had known, everything she had been raised to be. Aurora, her father pleaded, don't listen to him. Come with me. We can find safety in the eastern kingdoms, far from wolves and prophecies. Safety, she repeated, the word suddenly hollow. Is that what my life has been, Father? Safe? Or merely controlled? Lionel's expression crumpled. I only wanted to spare you pain. By denying me truth? By drugging me into compliance? The anger she had held at bay surged forward. What would have happened when you died, Father? Would I have lived my entire life never knowing why I felt different? Why I dreamed of forests I'd never seen? Why the full moon called to me even through stone walls? She stepped away from both men, creating a space for herself between them. All my life, I've been told what I am, what I should be. Princess, daughter, human. Never once was I given the chance to discover the truth for myself. And now? Kaelin asked quietly. Aurora took a deep breath, feeling something unfurl within her, something wild and ancient that had been sleeping far too long. Now I choose, she said firmly. The full moon rose over the castle, bathing the courtyard in silver light. The pack had gathered, forming a circle around Aurora, who stood alone in the center. She had exchanged her royal gown for simpler attire, a loose tunic and leggings that would allow for movement, or transformation. Kaelin stepped into the circle, his powerful presence commanding immediate silence. He wore only loose trousers, his chest bare in the moonlight, the silver scar on his shoulder gleaming like a badge of honor. "Tonight," he addressed the assembled wolves, "we witness something not seen in centuries, the awakening of wolf blood long dormant." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Aurora caught glimpses of doubt on some faces, curiosity on others. Her father stood at the edge of the circle, heavily guarded but permitted to watch, a concession Kaelin had granted at her request. "The process is not without risk," Kaelin continued, his eyes finding hers. "The transformation may not come easily after generations of suppression. There will be pain." Aurora nodded. She had been warned, had spent hours discussing what might happen with the pack's eldest members. The herbs her father had used had weakened the wolf blood, but not destroyed it. With the right catalyst, it might still respond. "Are you certain?" Kaelin asked her quietly, stepping closer. "Once begun, there is no turning back." "I'm certain," she replied, her voice steady despite the fear fluttering in her chest. "I want to know all of who I am, not just the parts others deemed acceptable." He studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. "Then we begin." From a leather pouch at his waist, he withdrew a small object that gleamed in the moonlight, a curved fang, yellowed with age. "The tooth of the first alpha," he explained, "said to hold the essence of our kind." With ceremonial slowness, he drew the ancient fang across his palm, opening a shallow cut. Blood welled, dark against his skin. "Blood calls to blood," he intoned, the words in the ancient wolf tongue that Aurora now understood clearly. "What was divided seeks to be whole." He held out his bleeding palm to her. Aurora hesitated only briefly before placing her own hand in his, their blood mingling. A strange warmth spread up her arm from the point of contact, racing through her veins like liquid fire. "Now," Kaelin said, his voice deepening to the alpha command. "Awaken." The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Aurora gasped as pain lanced through her, her bones seeming to liquefy and reform beneath her skin. She fell to her knees, still clutching Kaelin's hand, her body convulsing with the first stages of transformation. "Fight through it," he urged, kneeling beside her. "Don't resist the change." Aurora tried to respond, but her voice emerged as a strangled howl. Her senses heightened abruptly. The scent of the pack around her, the sound of their heartbeats, the taste of Kaelin's blood on her tongue, all impossibly vivid and overwhelming. "She's shifting," someone whispered in awe. Through the haze of pain, Aurora felt fur rippling beneath her skin, pushing outward. Her fingers contracted, nails extending into claws. Her spine arched unnaturally as her body fought to assume a new form. "Let go," Kaelin whispered, his free hand stroking her hair. "Surrender to it." With a final wrenching spasm, Aurora surrendered. The world exploded into sensation as her human form gave way, replaced by something new yet strangely familiar, as if she were finally wearing the skin she had been born for. She stood on 4 legs, her body covered in pale silver-white fur that gleamed in the moonlight. Around her, the pack stared in wonder and reverence. Some dropped to their knees, others shifted into wolf form, howling their welcome to the night sky. Aurora tested her new body, feeling strength and speed she had never known. Her senses were razor-sharp, the world around her transformed into a tapestry of scent and sound and movement. She turned to see her father watching, tears streaming down his face. Grief or wonder, she couldn't tell. Then Kaelin shifted, his massive black wolf form padding toward her. He circled her slowly, his golden eyes holding hers, before touching his muzzle to hers in a gesture of acceptance and something deeper. "Mine," his scent seemed to say. "My equal. My mate." Aurora felt the rightness of it deep in her newly awakened wolf soul. This was where she belonged. Not as captive, not as prize, but as partner to the alpha who had seen her true nature when all others had denied it. Together, they raised their heads and howled, a sound of completion, of prophecy fulfilled. Around them, the pack joined in, their voices rising to the moon in celebration of what had been found and what would come. The blood divided had returned as one. The ancient pact was reborn, and as the moon sailed high above them, the Alpha King and his white wolf queen ran together into the forest, two worlds united at last. If you enjoyed this story, a like or comment really helps. And if you wish to hear more tales like this one, make sure you subscribe so you never miss the next tale.